For so many people, retirement was never supposed to be a luxury. It was supposed to be a reward, a moment of peace after decades of hard work. Millions of Americans believed in that dream with all their hearts. They woke up before the sun came up, worked long hours, came home exhausted, and still kept going because they believed every sacrifice was building a safer future. They believed that one day all the stress, all the pressure, and all the struggle would finally be worth it. This generation carried America on its back. They worked in factories, schools, hospitals, offices, construction sites, restaurants, and small family businesses. They worked through sickness, through layoffs, through rising prices, and through difficult times that younger generations can barely imagine. Many of them did not complain. They just kept moving forward because they believed hard work meant security. They believed loyalty and dedication would eventually bring stability. And for years, that dream felt real. Every paycheck gave people hope. Every dollar saved felt like another step toward freedom. People imagined retirement as the moment they could finally breathe. More time with family, more laughter, more mornings without alarms, more freedom to enjoy life after spending decades serving others. That dream became the fuel that pushed millions forward even when life became difficult. Parents skipped buying things for themselves so their children could have better lives. Couples delayed vacations so they could save for the future. Workers stayed loyal to companies for 30 or 40 years because they trusted the promise that everything would work out in the end. There was pride in that way of living. Pride in earning honestly, pride in sacrifice, pride in believing that tomorrow could be better than today. And deep down, people held on to one powerful belief that kept them going through every hard moment. If they worked hard enough and stayed responsible long enough, retirement would finally become the season of life where peace, dignity, and security would finally arrive. Then came the moment that shocked millions of people. After decades of working, saving, sacrificing, and doing everything they believed was right, they looked at their retirement accounts, their monthly bills, and the cost of everyday life and realized something terrifying. It still was not enough. Imagine spending 40 or 50 years believing you were building security, only to discover the finish line keeps moving farther away. People who thought they would finally rest are now sitting at kitchen tables late at night staring at numbers that do not make sense anymore. Groceries cost more, rent costs more, medicine costs more, insurance costs more. Even basic survival suddenly feels expensive. And the hardest part is that many of these people did not waste their lives. They were responsible, they worked overtime, they skipped luxuries, they stayed loyal to their jobs, they raised families and paid their taxes year after year. Yet now, many are entering retirement with fear instead of peace. Some boomers are returning to work after already retiring because their savings disappeared faster than expected. Others are postponing retirement completely because they cannot afford to stop working. Many feel embarrassed and ashamed because they believed they should have been more prepared, even though the world around them changed in ways nobody expected. For many families, this reality is heartbreaking to watch. Parents and grandparents who once looked strong and confident are now worried about paying bills and surviving the future. People who spent their whole lives taking care of others are now wondering who will take care of them. But this struggle is not a sign of weakness. It is the result of years of rising costs, economic pressure, disappearing pensions, and systems that became harder and harder for ordinary people to survive in. Millions of Americans are facing the exact same fear at this very moment. And despite all the disappointment and pain, many still wake up every day determined to keep fighting. Because that generation learned something powerful long ago. Even when life becomes overwhelming, you keep pushing forward, you keep standing tall, and you never stop searching for hope. What quietly destroyed retirement for so many people was not one single event. It was years and years of pressure building slowly in the background while ordinary Americans tried their best just to keep up. Little by little, the cost of life kept rising faster than the ability to save, and many people did not even realize how serious the problem had become until it was already too late. Everything became more expensive. Food prices climbed. Gas prices rose again and again. Rent and property taxes became harder to manage. Healthcare costs exploded. Prescription medicines that people depend on every single day suddenly cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Even people who thought they had decent savings started watching those savings disappear faster than they ever imagined. At the same time, many companies quietly changed the rules. Pensions that once gave workers security started disappearing. Stable jobs became less common. Wages did not rise fast enough to match inflation. Families who once survived comfortably on one paycheck suddenly needed two incomes just to stay afloat. And through all of this, millions of boomers kept sacrificing. They delayed retirement, they worked longer hours, they helped children and grandchildren who were struggling financially too. Many emptied savings, helping family members through emergencies, college costs, unemployment, or medical problems. Some lost money during economic crashes and never fully recovered. Others faced layoffs late in life when finding a new job became much harder. The pressure never seemed to stop. What makes this story so emotional is that many people kept smiling through the struggle. They kept showing up for work. They kept paying bills. They kept pretending everything was okay because they did not want to become a burden to anyone else. But behind closed doors, fear was growing. People started realizing retirement was no longer guaranteed. For some, retirement became impossible. For others, it became a daily battle between survival and dignity. Yet, even through all these hardships, this generation continues to show unbelievable resilience. They keep adapting, they keep fighting, they keep searching for ways to protect their families and hold on to hope, because deep inside them is a strength built from decades of surviving challenges that would have broken many other people long ago. For many boomers, the hardest part is not just the money, it is the feeling of betrayal. The feeling that they played by the rules their entire lives and still ended up struggling. That pain cuts deep because this generation truly believed in the system. They believed honesty, loyalty, discipline, and hard work would protect them in the end. They trusted the promises they heard for decades. Go to work, stay committed, save what you can, pay into the system, be responsible. And one day retirement will be your reward. That message shaped an entire generation. It became part of their identity. Many people built their whole lives around that belief. So imagine how heartbreaking it feels to finally reach retirement age and realize the security they were promised feels farther away than ever. People who worked 30 or 40 years for the same company watched pensions disappear. Others saw retirement accounts shrink during financial crashes while executives and corporations continued getting richer. Healthcare costs kept climbing. Housing became unaffordable. Everyday bills became overwhelming. And suddenly, many retirees started asking themselves one painful question: how did this happen after everything I gave? That question is echoing across America right now. There are grandparents skipping meals to stretch their grocery budgets, retirees afraid to turn on the air conditioner because electricity costs too much, older Americans taking part time jobs not because they want extra spending money, but because they are trying to survive, and many feel forgotten. This generation spent years building businesses, raising families, supporting communities, and helping create the country people live in today. They gave their energy, their youth, and their strength to keep everything moving forward. Yet now, many feel like they are carrying fear instead of peace into the final chapters of their lives. But even through this disappointment, there is still something incredibly powerful about this generation. They refuse to quit. They continue showing courage every single day. They continue helping their families even when they are struggling themselves. They continue fighting for dignity even when the odds feel unfair. And maybe that is the greatest truth of all. The strength of this generation was never only about money, it was about resilience. It was about standing tall during difficult times. It was about refusing to give up even when life did not turn out the way they were promised. Across America right now, there are millions of families quietly carrying a heavy emotional weight. Children are watching their parents grow older with stress instead of comfort. Grandchildren are seeing grandparents who once looked strong and unstoppable now worrying about bills, medicine, and the future. And for many families, this is painful because these are the same people who spent their whole lives protecting everyone else. This generation sacrificed so much for their families. They worked extra shifts so their kids could have better opportunities. They skipped buying things for themselves so their children would never go without. They stayed awake at night worrying about tuition, rent, food, and keeping the family together during hard times. They carried responsibilities without asking for praise because that is simply what they believed family meant. Now, many of those same parents are trying to hide their struggles. They smile during family dinners, even when they are terrified about money. They tell people they are doing fine, even when retirement savings are disappearing faster every month. Some quietly cut back on food, medicine, or basic needs because they do not want to become a burden to their children. And families can feel it. There is a growing sadness in watching proud parents struggle silently after decades of sacrifice. Many adult children want to help but are already fighting their own financial battles. Rising costs, debt, and economic pressure are hitting multiple generations at the same time, creating fear inside households everywhere. But something powerful also happens during moments like these. Families begin waking up emotionally. People start realizing how much their parents and grandparents truly endured. Conversations become more honest. Appreciation grows deeper. Younger generations begin understanding that behind every gray hair and tired face is a lifetime of hard work, sacrifice, heartbreak, and determination. And even in the middle of struggle, many boomers continue showing incredible love and strength. They still encourage their children. They still try to protect their families emotionally. They still give advice, support, and wisdom, even while carrying fears of their own. That is why this story is bigger than money. It is about human dignity. It is about love, sacrifice, family, and the emotional weight carried by a generation that spent most of its life giving everything it had to the people around them. There is a fear spreading across America that many people do not talk about openly, but millions feel it deep inside every single day. It is the fear of growing old without security, the fear of working your entire life and still not knowing if you can afford to survive retirement. And for many boomers, that fear has become painfully real. You can see it everywhere now. Older Americans are delaying retirement longer than they ever expected. Some are working jobs in their 70s just to keep up with bills. Others are watching savings disappear month after month while prices continue rising around them. People who once felt hopeful about the future are now filled with uncertainty every time they check their bank accounts or pay another medical bill. What makes this even more emotional is that many of these people spent decades believing they were doing everything correctly. They followed the advice they were given, they worked hard, they stayed responsible, they sacrificed for their families. Yet now many feel like the ground beneath them is becoming unstable, and this fear is not only affecting boomers. Younger generations are watching closely. Families everywhere are beginning to realize how fragile financial security can become even after a lifetime of effort. People are starting to understand that retirement is no longer guaranteed simply because someone worked hard for many years. That realization is creating anxiety across the country. Many retirees are afraid of healthcare costs. Others worry about losing their homes. Some fear becoming dependent on family members because they never imagined they would struggle this much later in life. Proud, independent people are carrying silent stress every single day while trying to appear strong on the outside. But even during this uncertainty, something remarkable continues to shine through this generation. Boomers have survived economic crashes, inflation, layoffs, personal loss, and enormous life changes. They know what it means to endure difficult times. They know how to keep moving forward, even when life becomes overwhelming. That resilience is still alive inside millions of people today. And while fear may be growing, so is awareness. More families are waking up. More people are having honest conversations about money, retirement, healthcare, and the future. People are beginning to realize that protecting one another, Staying informed and preparing early may become one of the most important battles of this generation. Right now, millions of people are starting to realize something that could change the future of their lives forever. Retirement security does not happen automatically anymore. It is no longer enough to simply work hard and hope everything will somehow work out in the end. The world has changed, and families everywhere are beginning to wake up to a difficult but powerful truth. Preparation matters more now than ever before. For years, many people avoided these conversations because they were uncomfortable. Talking about money problems, retirement fears, debt, healthcare costs, or growing older felt frightening. People kept telling themselves there would always be more time later. But now, millions are seeing what happens when warning signs are ignored for too long. And that realization is creating a new kind of urgency. Families are starting to sit down together and talk honestly about the future. Parents are opening up about financial worries they once kept hidden. Younger generations are paying closer attention to savings, investments, and long term planning because they have watched what happened to so many hardworking people before them. There is pain in these conversations, but there is also power. Because awareness changes everything. The more people understand what is happening, the more they can protect themselves, their families, and the people they love. Knowledge becomes strength, preparation becomes protection, and hope becomes something stronger than fear. This generation still has enormous wisdom to offer. Boomers understand sacrifice, endurance, discipline, and resilience better than almost anyone. They survived difficult decades, raised families during uncertain times, and carried responsibilities that shaped the country people live in today. Their experiences hold lessons that younger generations desperately need to hear. And maybe this moment is not only a warning, maybe it is also a wake up call for the entire country. A reminder that dignity in retirement matters, that people who spend their lives working hard deserve security, respect, and peace later in life, that families become stronger when generations support one another instead of struggling alone in silence. The future may feel uncertain right now, but one thing remains incredibly powerful. People still have the ability to prepare, to adapt, to fight for their future, and to help one another before it becomes too late.